everybody. You are here with us to talk about The Mandalorian Chapter 7, The Reckoning. We're going to dive deep. This is not so much a review. This is the discussion of what's going on. To do that, this week I have returning the show from the Obsessed Podcast and the Force Center Podcast, where we're prequelists, Joseph Scrimshaw. How are you doing?
Happy to be here, Ken. Thank you.
A lot of fun, and before we get into it, we want to remind you and thank our sponsors, Heroes and Villains at heroesvillains.com. They are making all of this happen. Love a good sponsorship friendship, and they have got some great merchandise out there for not just Star Wars, a lot of geek stuff. They're growing, their collections are growing, but if you want some Star Wars stuff, now's the time, and they got a great sale going on right now, $20 off, and then our code, JEDI10, gets you 10% on top of that. And check it out if you want. Go to heroesvillains.com. Joseph, let's dive into this episode right away. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. You and I love titles. We love our titles, and we think the titles mean a lot in this show. It's here, and it's here. Take me through what you think The Reckoning meant.
I think The Reckoning is nice and literal, like, hey, the general plot engine of this has been the Mando becomes a surprise parent to a baby Yoda and has been trying to just outrun it, and he can't, and he needs to literally reckon with that by going back to the client, going back to Greef Karga and deal with it. But then on that deeper level that this show has been really great at, I feel like it is about all of the characters reckoning with this idea of who they are.
Yeah.
The whole show has definitely been really examining who is the Mandalorian under that mask. People really pushing him on that. And all these characters are reckoning with that big idea of, are you exactly who you're sort of programmed to be?
Yeah.
Or can you change your programming? That gets obviously literalized by Quill's great speech, but you know, it's there in all the characters, I think, in this episode going, well, from one perspective, I'm a noble veteran. From another perspective, I've done horrible things. Yeah. Maybe I heal. Maybe I force choke. I know we'll get into all that, but for the big picture, everybody's wrestling with, am I what I'm supposed to be?
I mean, we could talk a little big picture. It just keeps coming up, even down to Cara Dune's tattoos, of people reacting to what they might think her programming is.
Yes.
That means you're a rebel soldier, and not just a rebel, but like a damn good one.
Right.
Dropping in above us and killing us. Can you get from that, cover that up? We know a lot about the Mandalorian's past, but his views, there's always this tension between the growth he's clearly doing. And these last 3 episodes, episodic as they may have been, monster or adventure of the week as they may have been, do give us some insight into the character, move it forward. Last week, he was a prisoner, and he broke free, literally, from his past. Yes, there was a prisoner in the episode, but it's also about him looking around and going, I'm breaking free from what used to hold me. But so he's doing that, but I sometimes think he's still fighting that.
Oh, yeah. I think he doesn't know exactly who he wants to be. I think he knows who he doesn't want to be.
Yes.
Right? And he kind of wants to live up to what it means to be a Mandalorian, but it seems like that even has some ambiguity in the current state of affairs and in his mind, and even when he makes a choice. Like, I love that he was really looking back last week at, this is the crew I ran with. I probably did some things I'm not proud of that broke my code, and now my crew is Baby Yoda. But I don't know exactly how to do that either, as this episode reminds us once again.
So he's going off to for a reckoning, and he needs a crew because we get Greef Karga back. Again, no surprise, the reveal of the Beskar in that blaster shot. We get that there. There's Greef Karga, Carl Weathers. Hot damn, I love Carl Weathers. The opening... You and I were talking, we also talk about this show on the Force Center podcast feed, no secrets there, but we were talking in depth about the exposition is heavy.
Yeah.
And the way Greef Karga talks was not, I'm going to say 100% different from what he was talking in the first couple episodes, but it was really exaggerated in a fun way, but different.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition, but like later in the episode, Cara Dune calls him out for being dramatic, and that to me like locked his character in. He is this big, tough guy who runs a guild, and he can talk tough. But then there is something kind of that has been theatrical about him through the whole thing, like the way I think it's the 3rd episode when Mando walks in, and he's like, they all hate you, Mando. He is saying it loud enough so everybody hears, and there's that flair of that, especially in this speech where he was kind of like, well, I'm telling you some information. It sounds too good to be true, but trust me. And then throwing in words like despotic rule. Like, okay, you got a thesaurus, Greef.
Yeah, you wrote it down. I think we each have some notes, but I think you wrote down his line. Doesn't he says, I will await your arrival with great optimism?
Yes, I await your arrival with optimism. It's such a weird thing to say for like a grizzled bounty hunter guild leader to be like, I hope you'll do this with me.
Yeah.
Sincerest greetings. Best to your loved ones. Greef Karga.
So, which I want that to be a text auto reply. I await your arrival with optimism. He takes his job, no surprise, just in terms of the story engine, but analyzing why he takes his job. We've seen him do things to hide sanctuary, do things for money, ship repairs, all to either get away. But now he's got it. Does he realize in your mind, yes, I can't keep running. We've seen it. He does cite that. But he's going to join up with him. Does he? I don't think he trusts him. What do you think motivated him in that moment for the Mandalorian to go, all right, I'm going to go back to this guy?
Yeah, I think it was his knowledge that he didn't have anywhere else to go. And one of the things I'm really interested to see what the show will do is so far the Mandalorian has been decisive once he actually gets into a situation.
Yeah.
So we see him try a couple things, but for the most part, he gets into a situation where like, I want money or I want to protect the kid, and then I just kind of respond to whatever's happened to me. So it seems really in character for him to say, I can't run anymore. I don't really have a plan of where to go next.
Right.
Greef's right that they're going to keep coming, so I'll just go spring that trap and see what happens and trust that I'll find a way out.
Yeah,
and then he gives himself the extra insurance of
and gets his own crew going here. Which this has been. We were joking. It could end up being like the Seinfeld finale where all the characters show up. It could be those type of storytelling devices, but no true surprise of him going back and kind of getting the characters. But it was a pleasant surprise because I was starting to wonder, and I have said even on this show, of like, I log into Disney Plus, I see him and IG-11 and Cara Dune. I'm like, but I do want that. And we finally got it.
Yeah.
And always be patient. Always be a little patient with these shows before you start calling them filler and all these words. There's a story they're being told, even in episodic television here. I love that he goes back. We got to see Gina Carano doing what she does best. Thump. Just thump a Zabrak.
Yeah, thump a Zabrak. And I think what this show has excelled at is we can dive into, what does this mean? But it's also just had this great surface level, fun Star Wars stuff and that imaginative kind of stuff of like, Star Wars is a huge galaxy. What else might exist? An energy belt to tie you together while you beat the crap out of one another for bets and money. Because why not? Because I'm loving seeing all those little surface details like that. And we learned so much about her character in that fight, the way she's enjoying brawling. She almost seems to be like, oh, yeah, you got to hit in, so I'll kind of smile at that. I'll taunt you with my little dance, and then beats him up and makes him pay for it.
Makes him tap out, literally, and great moment there later on where he has to put the money down.
Yeah.
She says, come back.
Come back soon.
Come back soon.
Yeah, great moment.
And, we always keep track of our favorite Baby Yoda moments, right? And when he saunters into the bar behind his dad.
Just kind of checking out everyone's ankles.
I have chihuahuas around the house. It's a similar view. So he's recruiting her, and this is where we start getting into some stuff about the characters. We know a lot about her. We know she was a shock trooper, and she got a little bored of what the New Republic became, and she went away, maybe ran away. I don't think she retired with honors. I don't know. She could have, but she seems to have run away, and then that gets into she's done some things.
Yeah.
She can't kind of reemerge. But he pulls her back in with this promise of fighting the Empire as opposed to playing soldier. Well, what do you think this scene tells us about Cara, the character, right now?
I think it really brings her and the Mando together because she's clearly got a part of her that's like honorable of, I was a part of the New Republic, a part of the rebellion, a part of sort of the good side, as it were, taking down injustice. And then something went elsewhere for me, and now I'm wanted by the New Republic.
Yeah.
And I like how much that's drawn out, where even the Mando's like, well, aren't you just like an honorable veteran of war? And she's like, no, actually, I've done some horrible things. But anyway, and I think that's got to ring true to Mando of this is really a kindred spirit. It's not just, oh, she's a great fighter. There's that.
Yeah.
But also, I like seeing him go, oh, I can see myself in you, and I don't think that happens for him very often.
Yeah, it's a great connection, and I think it's been played out really good, where it's a connection on this, on a real good brainwave. This emotional connection, because we see he's connected to orphans and the concept of orphans and foundlings, and that's clearly with Baby Yoda why it's working. And I think it's shown up in other places too with him, but with her. I love the old warrior kind of connection there, because again we're learning more in this episode about the Mandalorians. I'm still dying to know, and I don't know if we'll get it this season. I'm still dying to know his true path to I was foundling Mandalorian Something went wrong. I was a bounty hunter. I dated a Twi'lek for a while. Real messy. We don't talk about it.
I didn't take the helmet off, but we don't know about any of the rest of the Beskar. Yeah.
Killed my old friend Mark Boone Jr. It's great. So I really love this moment. And I'll just say this. At times, I've said, with Gina Carano, she's first to say, hey, I'm learning acting, or I'm not an actor, but I am now. I love seeing her come back a second time and really grow into this character.
Yeah.
Not that she didn't have great things going on in the fourth episode, Sanctuary. She did. But to me, just felt that what Bryce Dallas Howard helped her create in episode 4 was built upon here with Deborah Chow's directing. And you could see Cara Dune, as played by Gina Carano, being a character that has some staying power in Star Wars.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought she did a great job.
So moving on from there, well, they're doing. I love this. The ship starts crashing, and I fell for it. I was like, wow, they've been attacked. No, it's just Baby Yoda playing with the controls.
Yeah.
What a way to show they need a babysitter.
It was such a little scene, but one that I really liked because my mind was on, hey, the Mando and Cara Dune are bonding. They're both tough, resourceful fighters with a little bit of a checkered past. And then they have this bad parenting moment together where she's like, is he okay up there? And Mando's, yeah. I feel like the audience is like, no, I don't have children. I'm not even a very good uncle. And I know, don't leave the baby in the cockpit. Yeah, so everything about that is great. His little head pop down to check in on them before he goes and F's up the controls. Yeah. Great.
Like he's as if he's watching, like, are they distracted? Great, I'm going to play with the ship finally. And there's a little small moment there because it is this practical kind of puppet. And sometimes when the characters hold him, you go, it's a puppet. Other times, I'm convinced it's a real character, a real creature. When Gina Carano holds him, she holds him like I hold babies, like when someone gives me a baby, and I'm like, can we put that over here?
Something's gonna come out of this. Yeah, I also just the shot of him actually just kind of moving what looked like a kind of a joystick type controller around. There's a little bit that I think gets bigger later in the episode, but a little bit of him being like, I'm being like my dad.
Yes.
This is because it's not him playing with the knob or just poking a button because it's shiny like he's done before. This is him going, I'm pretending I'm flying the ship like Mando Dad does.
Mando Dad. So they do go to where I think by this point we were pretty sure he was going to go, which is back to, I just forgot.
Navarro?
Quill's planet. It's something 3. Don't compete in trivia contests anymore, kids. It ruins your brain. They go back, but they go get Quill, which, not surprised. By this point, I'm actually excited. And then something we'd also kind of thought would happen, Joseph, you and I have been talking about, what a great idea would be to save IG-11 by having Quill go get him.
Yeah.
But it's not just that simple. This is actually, believe it or not, goes into my favorite sequence in the show and perhaps the series. Ken, what are you talking about? Quill rebuilds a droid and we see every step of the way. I believe this character is speaking emotional truths and moral truths every time he talks. And this was a lesson in what is going on. Even starting, Joseph, take us through it, where he goes back to what he describes to Mandalorian as your destruction. Even though he's very grateful for the peace he brought, it's framed in that way, and it's a beautiful sequence that begins there.
Yeah, there's this wisdom from Quill, like, hey, there was all of this chaos in it, and those guys needed to be gotten rid of. But even when that happens, there is a kind of a consequence to violence. Yeah. And I love that shot, just framing it, where you could see the corpses and the debris, and then there was Quill looking up from above at the carnage, and it just centers himself as a kind of calm mentor figure. And then everything he says in this beautiful montage is basically, it sets up all of the idea of reckoning, of changing what somebody's programming is. They don't have to be one thing or another. It's what the programmer parents on them or imprints on them. But the whole thing does have this great, like you said, I had kind of guessed and hoped that this is how we would get IG-11 back in the fold. It's, Quill, go get him and put a fun new brain in him.
Yeah.
And then when it started, it's like, well, why are we taking this long to tell a story point we guessed a while back? And then as soon as I saw IG-11 as like a human child who'd lost all motor function, right, and couldn't hold on to a glass without shattering it, it just immediately makes it all about what's been at the heart of Mandalorian, is this relationship with kids up to a point of, if the Mando can't figure out who he is, what is he going to imprint on Baby Yoda? And having Quill have all of this very mature, I will reinforce it with, what did he say? Reinforcing with patience and affirmation. And it's shot beautifully. It's moving. And then at the same time, it is just sort of like Kuiil going, Mando, here's parenting 101, without, I think, Kuiil quite realizing that's what he's communicating to Mando.
And by the way, we're doing the Star Wars tradition of Kuiil, because that's how you do Star Wars names. Even on the red carpet, they said it different than what Mando said in this episode. I love.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Nolte is what we'll call him. No, Kuiil, you're
Nolte,
more
yes.
right to be here. Yeah, again, this sequence, why I love it. We learn a lot about him. We learn about Kuiil was an indentured servant to the Empire. That's what he was talking about. But he worked for his freedom. Interesting. And when IG-11 walks back in to serve the tea, and that's the initial thing, and they pull the guns out, and Mando says that thing is programmed to kill the baby, and that starts the sequence. And you're attaching it to a parenting lesson is tremendously valuable and right, and I think is what was intended. And then you got also this idea of the rebuilding and the reprogramming and reckoning with what you were. And this line where he's describing it, reconstruction was quite difficult, but not impossible. It had to learn everything from scratch. This is something that could not be taught with the twist of a spanner. It goes into what you're talking about, the patience and affirmation. This to me is what the Mandalorian has been going through probably before we picked up the events of this show, and he's still fighting it at times. He's from a warrior culture, but he was found. They programmed him to be that a little bit. He's on the run. He got into some bad things. He's had to break free of that, and this is still what's going on, and it's going to take some time. And I love that Deborah Chow on Favreau's script here decided to take the time to tell this part of the story.
Yeah, because it got you in, it communicated all that, but also just kind of got you into the mood and pace and the calmness of Kuiil. It's basically just like, take a deep breath. Yeah. He emphasizes in that montage again and again that he took his time.
Yeah.
And that important things take time.
Take time.
Last thing I wanted to say about that is I liked also the line, that droids are neutral reflections of those who imprint them.
Yes.
And that mind made me flashback to Mando's flashbacks.
Yes.
Because this episode, people keep asking him, why do you hate droids so much? You hate them a lot, dude. And all of those flashbacks in those first couple of episodes have a real sense of imprinted. The droid's imprinted, and we still haven't seen who might have been standing above him to rescue him, and how did that imprint on Mando.
I love it. And everything with Kuiil. Going back to, was it episode 1 with the teaching of the blurgs? Other than it's just, hey, it's a fun little Western type of thing too. That you and I talked about it. That whole sequence, every line Kuiil says is a challenge to him as a person. Refine your honor as your people who rode the mythosaur. All this, it isn't just surface level. Learn to ride a blurg. It is, and blurgs are great. And I was really sad to see 2 go, or actually 3. And that's why I love this character of Kuiil so much. And Nick Nolte's voice casting ended up being a perfect choice that I couldn't have imagined. I thought he was going to be a bartender.
Yeah.
He could have been great as a bartender, but it continues to be one of my favorite characters. It's so rewarding.
Absolutely.
I think the end is nigh on him there. But,
I think he has spoken.
He has spoken for the last time. So from here, we'll move on ourselves from the reconstruction of IG-11, but really I could write a lot of poems about it there. I also love there's an exchange where Mando's like, I've run into some problems, and Quill's like, I figured. And it says, I have a name, man. I have a name. We go into that sequence, moving out. Now we're going to get back to Navarro. This is we also during this time we get the arm wrestling scene here, right?
Yeah.
So this is important too. Other than it's fun, this is also the first mention of several mentions of Cara Dune's tattoo, her arm tattoo. She does have the Rebel Alliance insignia on her cheek, but the arm tattoo indicating she was a shock trooper, a dropper. Again, going back to this idea of people having to reckon with that past and worry about that. But the arm wrestling scene, I'll start here and have you jump in. I love seeing Mandalorian sometimes have fun a little bit and be a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
He's bored, they're in space, let's arm wrestle. I'll challenge you. You're tough. I'm tough. But I like these little human moments when he jokes with Baby Yoda. He isn't just all, take you in warm, take you in cold. That's for the public to see. he's okay over here. I like that.
Yeah, there's almost like a level of bonding to Cara Dune. He's like, I see how you comport yourself in a bar. Let's just have some fun because we're on this the same plane. And the only other thing to do there would be to use the utterly exposed toilet, which is a thing I'm processing. But having the couple things in the background, we see Queel is tending to the blurg, and then he starts smoking something. Right? It's like I want to know. I want that action figure with Queel with whatever pipe.
Queel with the good nature's weed. Yeah, he's huffing and puffing back there. I did notice that.
Yeah, we have smoked. But obviously the big thing in this scene, right, is the Baby Yoda choke, which this moment tied all of the big picture idea of the reckoning together for me, and that idea of imprinting. The Baby Yoda's got those big eyes and he's taking in everything. It seems like everything we've seen, his nature is to just be empathetic and defensive. He looks like he wants to help Mando in chapter 2 when Mando's wounded. He does end up exerting himself to save him from the Mudhorn. He gets confused, thinks the Mando is in danger and pain, maybe even senses the actual arm pain of the Mando. And at first, to me, I thought it was going to be a cute joke bit of like, oh, he uses the Force and throws Cara's arm over, so Mando wins. And then that classic dark side move of the way he twists his little claw. Oscar nomination for claw acting. Emmy, I guess. But in that moment,
People's Choice Awards, at least.
People's Choice, Golden Globes. Can we get Golden Globes for the squeeze, the twist and the squeeze? But it's funny in its own way, but I think it just is so beautiful of not really Mando's fault, but he's been imprinting nothing but violence on this child. That's all the child is seeing constantly. So it kind of makes sense that he'd be like, my caregiver is in pain. I got to stop it, right? Because this is how we do things.
Yes. Going again to this big theme. And the whole, because we've been marveling at some of the point of view shots of Baby Yoda, of going into the town, focusing. You said the big wide eyes, with that ship flapping his ear in the wind is still amazing. Important scene, and there's also just some literal importance of Queel kind of having the reaction to, oh, that's what you were talking about.
I heard about that in the Empire of these kind of actions. These the Force word isn't used, right? But
And the Force word isn't used. You and I have talked about, you can't always take characters' dialogue as fact, but sometimes it is, and you have to the story plays out. I still early on was like, I'm not sure if Mando is faking a little bit of knowing a little bit more of what he saw with the Mudhorn. He certainly plays it. He certainly tells Queel, I don't know what was going on. I only said it because just if Mandalorian culture, even if you're a foundling and jumped into the club, your very outfits, your very weaponry is based off of old wars with the Jedi. You are very much aware of this kind of stuff. You might have heard of some kid named Obi-Wan coming to woo your princess or something, the Duchess, I should say. It's there. And so for him to, I know he ran away a little bit, but so it's a weird thing a little bit for me to look and go, what does this mean? Are we going to learn more of him kind of not knowing what the Force is?
I think where my mind is going now, because when they first talked about it several chapters ago, I felt like, he's asking Queel because he doesn't know what the Force is. But then when he had that great line to the armorer of, I was helped by my enemy, I was so questioned, does he just consider all bounties natural enemies? Or once he saw it was a Force user, did he know Force users have been enemies of the Mandalorian people? Now that we're getting back to a little bit of ambiguity, my mind goes to, does he accept as somebody who's been a part of Mandalorian culture that, Jedi are a real thing and they fought many wars with us, but a bunch of simple tricks and nonsense. And I know the Jedi exist. I know the kind of enemies of Mandalorians from a certain point of view. But I didn't know there was going to be little creatures force choking my friends while we're arm wrestling. I don't even have a vocabulary for it.
It's true. All of it. It's right there. And in this sequence too, and also this episode, we learn a little bit more of Quill's past working in the gene farms when he was working for the Empire. And again, I love a couple. We're going back a little bit, but the exchange is going to this theme. So the theme is very present of the moment he's back at his house, where he tells Cara and Mando, I fought for the other side. She's immediately like, walls up, your programming. He's like, no, I was indentured servant, and she still struggles with it. But it does give them valuable information. He worked in the gene farms. What phrase did they use? You read it.
The strand cast.
Strand cast. I love getting new bits of canon as it rolls out in front of us. So play a great sequence too of just like, it's not a clone. It's not a strand cast. It's ugly.
I worked in the gene farms. Yeah. All great stuff. And I do like the idea that both Cara Dune and Queel were not interested in going anywhere.
Yeah.
And they do, I think, have a good relationship to the Mandalorian up to a point. But I like that they're both motivated by different feelings about the Empire.
Yeah.
Cara Dune's hatred of it, and Queel's great thing about we can't let any kind of indentured servitude or slavery continue from these people, from the Empire, because it reminds you that this soon after war, everything and everyone is still affected by the war.
Still going.
I think makes it really powerful.
Yeah, in fact, they talk about once they meet up here with Greef, they do return to Navarro. But Navarro, on Navarro, Greef Karga, and granted, he is also at that point part of an ongoing ruse that he'll eventually not follow through on. But talking about how the Imperials will drop and run once there's no money, once they see they're not being paid. Again, going against what he feels their programming is, and just kind of this lot of faith on will people's programmings hold, or lack of faith in whether it will keep. So we are back on Navarro. We get to see Greef.
Yeah.
A couple bounty hunters there. This becomes a fun little sequence, but an important one as well. We get to see, what do we see? Lava goats? What do you call them?
Scraggy lava goats.
Scraggy lava goats.
It's just a great Star Wars detail. And then seconds later, they're eating that.
They're eating that. And then what I'm calling space dragons, supersized Minox. I don't know. This sequence of this attack by the creatures, which unfortunately I'm such an animal lover that when I see a blurg being taken off by a space dragon, I get really upset. It's like I can't watch Turner and Hooch again either. Good sequence. We got to see some. I love seeing Cara Dune. We've already seen her in action episode 4. I know she fights, but seeing her with that rifle, just that's an action figure moment I love.
Right. Yeah, and seeing her be much more spot on than all of the other hunters taking wild shots for the most part. Mando gets some hits in. But I loved what we were seeing from Greef, that they're all kind of reflecting on the child and that what the actual plan is. And it was just a great, successful moment of storytelling of Greef's funny line of like, nothing can go wrong, and then immediately being attacked. Like a lot of times lately, we've had things spoiled by clips, right? So, as soon as they get to that location, they're going to have this fight. Yeah. It's great to have one of those, like, no idea they were going to be attacked by space dragons.
Never, not at all. There's a line early, so the action happens. Greef is hurt, as we know, leading to this big moment. But there's a moment early on where Greef looks at the baby and goes, "Oh, he's a carnivore." And so his reaction when Baby Yoda walks up to heal him, and we all get to, he's walking up to heal him, and he says, "It's trying to eat me." There's some great character comedy that, and a little callback there.
Yeah, and right before that, this is when Cara Dune calls him out for being dramatic when he says, "So this is how it happens." He's like totally ready to die.
It's kind of like me when I don't want to do the dishes at my house. And,
so this is how it ends.
Like, you're being dramatic again. So the force healing moments, this is something kind of relatively new here that we're seeing, and we've seen a lot. He tries to do this in episode 2, so here's the payoff to it, and I thought it worked really well. Something I wouldn't expect on a TV show that's sometimes working with a more limited budget. It looked really well, it felt really well, and I love how it played out.
Yeah, and I love the looks on everybody's faces going, what is this? How is this happening? But it really tied together all of these ideas of imprinting and can you change your programming? Yeah. Because it sort of reminded us of, this is the Baby Yoda we've seen.
This is what he wants to do.
Before he even really bonded with Mando, he just sensed Mando's hurt, and I'm going to go. And Mando pushes him away, and it was really great storytelling to make us all think, like, is he trying to heal? So as you were saying, it pays off, but it shows us who he is in his kind of natural state before all of this violence is imprinting on him, and it makes you go, is he going to be a healer or a choker? Yeah, a force choker.
And then what's the desire to have this thing captured or tested or cloned?
Is it about this?
About this? Is it to clone? Is it to? We'll get more into what it means to the characters, but Yeah, there's something there too. So they finally get. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the other important part of it is what it does for Greef in terms of changing his programming.
His programming gets chased, shoots his bounty hunters friends in the morning.
Yep, because he's thinking, the audience is thinking, right. Of course he's going to turn on them. You know, he's grizzled bounty hunter guild leader, and to have him changed by that moment. It supports what Queel is saying. It's like things can change.
Things can change, and he needs Mando in this moment. They come up with a plan to go face the clients, Werner Herzog. They walk into Navarro. Some great shots of them walking in. I think there was one in this sequence you loved of the was there a sunset shot of them walking into town, or is this another point in town?
Oh, this is when they're going into Queel's little home that was so beautiful. Yeah, but there is a shot here when they're going into town where Queel and Baby Yoda are leaving.
Yes,
that's the one I was thinking of. They're kind of blurring the foreground, and then our other three are going off the other direction, and it kind of raised that tension of like something's going to happen to one of these groups. It had one of those sort of bittersweet partings. It
played out because right away you've just seen kind of the treacherous land you have to cross. It takes a long time. Even with blurgs running.
Lava's never good in Star Wars.
Lava, space dragons, a lot going on out there. So immediately the tension meter pops up. Yeah. I don't like it when people separate, even though I know they have to. I'm always like, stay together. Take on the haunted mansion by yourself as a team. So this goes into all right. So we get to see Werner Herzog returns, and this leads to I think I'm not going to speak for you, but I think collectively our favorite line in Star Wars ever.
Absolutely.
But it starts with them kind of being reacquainted. Mando's captured, and there's Werner Herzog.
Oh, so beautiful.
I love that he looks at his new armor because he hasn't seen him like this and says, what is exquisite craftsmanship?
Yeah.
Which also to me speaks of what this man's been being rebuilt along each episode.
It goes to the client also being really kind of obsessed with poking the Mandalorian and the Mandalorians, because he's like, it's when it's been crafted by an ancient or an artisanal, I can't remember exactly what he said, but really driving it home of like, wow, when you find a living Mandalorian, they can do amazing things with the armor that we took from you.
And he gets to that, but not before saying to Greef this line, "Can I offer you libation to celebrate the closing of our shared narrative?"
Yes.
The greatest line in the history of Star Wars. We want some needlepoint made to hang in the den. Just can we reflect on this?
Yes.
Werner Herzog in Star Wars just keeps being the treasure, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I mean, he could be saying any Star Wars things. We've all had fun with like, it's great to hear Werner Herzog say weird Star Wars terms like tracking fob or parsec. It's all great. But this, he's kind of playing the like gentleman bad guy. I thought of him almost like a kind of classic Dracula, the rich guy who's actually a monster, like James Bond villains of like, of course, before I shoot you in the kneecap, would you like some sushi? Like, so it had that flavor, but just that strange surprise of celebrate the closing of our shared narrative. It also has this like, I'm totally in control. Yeah. This story is going to end now, and it's going to end my way.
And with a drink. Also, a little bit later, I'm skipping quite a little ahead, but when he tries to see the asset as you would think he'd want, they say, or Greef says, it's asleep, and he shoots back, we'll all be quiet. Like, just great comedy there. But in between those moments, we get a little bit more. We've been piece by piece learning more about the Great Purge as it relates to the Mandalorians, them being wiped out, scattered throughout the galaxy, and what that was. And this is something we've been waiting for here.
Yeah. So I really like how they've been doling it out. They suggested it early on. I think we had more confirmation last week when the crew was teasing him and saying, if Mandos are so good, why are so many of you dead?
Right.
And I really like that this made it clear that the client confirms that Mandalore was attacked by the Empire, because he likens it to the current situation of, this is just like what happened to your whole planet. If you just did what we told you to do, there wouldn't be any problem. So I like that clear confirmation that the Empire put its boot down on Mandalore, and it makes so much sense when you leave in Rebels Bo-Katan with the Darksaber, everything we know about the Mandalorian people being like, if other people in the galaxy are fighting, we're going to rise up and we're going to be a problem. Yeah. So I'm really excited for that clear confirmation. Very excited for them to dole out exactly physically as a military attack, or if it's some other kind of attack. What did the Empire do to Mandalore? Yeah,
and it certainly could come in other media, and maybe next season more, but I love that just a little bit more. I'm trying to figure it out. And this leads to the big final sequence of the show. Client gets a call from Moff Gideon and interrupts the opening of the pram. All great stuff. It's just the best. Werner Herzog's the best. Unfortunately, I do think he took a big laser bolt to the chest here in a few seconds, right?
I think he's, yeah.
Yeah. So the Death Troopers show up here, and we're going to have a conversation about what the Death Troopers means, but this is the Moff Gideon, who has a wonderful cape, a TIE fighter that parks so smoothly. And I think members of the actual 501st in real life got to portray a lot of these stormtroopers here. So they showed up very clean compared to what I'm calling the dirty empire that's ruling parts of this galaxy.
The remnant stormtroopers, I think the databank calls them.
And this is, I'm happy to say, we got to go a little more detail into this moment in my love of it on Force Center. But here, happy to report, everyone always debates what this show is. Samurai, Western, video game, John Wick parody. What is it? What is it? Well, it's Star Wars, like I say, but in this particular moment, I'm happy to report it is the final moments of Young Guns. I am the Young Guns. I live for Young Guns and Young Guns 2. I'll make you famous. I love this. This is a band that didn't necessarily think they'd be together at this point. In an enclosed space, surrounded by everyone. The army has shown up. The cavalry has shown up. Tom Cruise, actually, in that sequence, he shows up. This is just like the end of Young Guns. Trust me, it is. But Moff Gideon has arrived. Let's talk about Moff. We know Giancarlo Esposito was in the show. We knew he was coming.
Yeah.
We've kind of figured he was the big bad at the end of this video game we're playing. He shows up, and I think he looks pretty darn cool and menacing.
Yeah, I think everything about how they laid out Moff Gideon and his actual clean troopers was great, because we have spent a lot of time learning what a badass Mando and Cara Dune is. So you really want to ratchet up. If this is the big bad, if it is a video game, this is that moment where you're like, I have to beat all that. All right, I'm gonna have to play this one through a couple of times.
Yeah.
So I think that to establish that, I love the roll up of the troop carrier, which is the actual Kenner toy from 1979, an Imperial troop transporter. It's awesome because I love the action figure references. But then having that big new tie. That with the folding wings.
Yep.
And then the fact that it had some kind of like elevator, so he could rise up out of the fighter. Everything had a sense of like purposeful theatricality to it.
Yeah.
To elevate him as a bigger threat, more power, overwhelming numbers, and then of course the line of death troopers.
Yeah.
Who are not, they don't just have cooler armor. They are, in canon up to this point, much more ferocious, well-trained fighters.
Yeah, special unit, and I love that he has them. And this idea, we know, all we know is just in the press leading up to the start of the show is Giancarlo Esposito talked about Moff Gideon kind of maybe, I think it was more of like a regional governor, and and now he sees a path to some power that maybe wasn't there before, and probably believes in the Empire. We got Werner Herzog finally saying the speech we heard in the trailers lot of it's what I keep calling the trains run on time speech back in the day with the Empire. And let's talk a little bit about it, because I think it ties into Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
You and I love the movie Solo, and one of the reasons we love the movie Solo is it really shows you that the Empire didn't just destroy things through the might of the military. The Empire destroyed things through just their presence and ruining industry and ruining family units and ruining planets and cultures and civilizations, and that helped spark the rebellion. We see that on display in Solo a lot, on small levels and big levels, and this all ties into what the client is saying to Mando.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think Solo is a great action adventure movie. It moves fast, but to me it's all based about institutionalized poverty.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, if you have less means, you can't rise up against us. You know, if you're going to just end up having to live in a sewer, struggling to get by, you can't rise up. And I think, as you're saying, that ties to what the client is pitching. Maybe it's even true from his perspective. Maybe he really believes it, or maybe he is just twisting the knife more. The idea of like, it was all great. Trade was great. People had great jobs. Sure, it was great if you were higher up in the Empire. Wasn't great when you were Han Solo or Han Solo's dad on Corellia, when you used to be a proud worker, getting paid a decent amount to make a good product, and the Empire's like, nah. Why don't we pay you nothing and break you in spirit, in finance, in body, and then to have him, the client, going, it was so good when everybody just went along with what we demanded.
And the fact that they're on the Outer Rim, where it might be easier to believe that. It might be easier to look. The New Republic, we saw last week, the New Republic does have some weight. It does bring some fear with them. Those X-Wings can come out and wipe you out. The New Republic is up and running. We know in story, Mon Mothma, Leia, and all the new leaders of the New Republic are doing their best to form it, and they're doing a good job. But out here, it'd be easy to hear that speech. No, I don't think Mando's going to believe it, but it's just as in terms of Star Wars canon, setting the tone, and just you hear what would cause organizations, First Order, whatever, to rise up. You heard that going into the show. This is that thought of look what's going on out here. On top of that, I don't think the client is mentioning it, but at top of that, it's almost as if he's going, hey, you got this nutball Moff Gideon running around too. He's not saying that specifically, but it's like there's a lot going on out here in the unknown world. And the flip side of that is Moff Gideon sees a chance to, in this chaos, bring back what he believed in or what he wants to accomplish.
To bring back order.
Yeah,
and get something that's important to him.
And what is important to him is Baby Yoda. Final moments of the show here. And this is being interplayed so wonderfully with the Biker Scouts. And you know I love Biker Scouts.
I do. I thought of you as soon as I saw them in their lazy body language.
Lazy body. These are they're just sitting there like traffic cops waiting to pull someone over for cell phone use, and then they're springing to action. So this great sequence is going on. We know something bad's going to happen, but can Quill get back to the ship? It's playing out so well. But Moff Gideon through this is giving some important information of saying, you have something I want. You may think you have some idea of what you are in possession of or what you have possession of, but it means more to me than you'll ever really know. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things on the surface, but a lot of things that raise questions about what he really wants out of the baby.
Yeah. I think there is a power to his entrance and the power of how organized his military is. That just to talk about those lazy biker scouts for a second, that there is like a suggestion that the client was really running a super subpar version of this idea of this perfect empire that the client is describing, whereas suddenly Moff Gideon still has enough power and resources to kind of be the face of that. Look, we're going to run things with an iron fist and it'll be better for everyone.
Yeah.
So he's already coming in with that energy, and then it gives him even more power. Not like Giancarlo Esposito needs help communicating power, but it escalates that threat. So I think as a viewer, you really want to take what he's saying seriously, that he means it and he has the power to back it up, which only adds more to the weight of totally understandable for him to say, you don't understand what you possess.
Yeah. Because
clearly the Mando doesn't quite understand what he possesses.
Yeah.
But the thing that really just excited me so much was the you will means more to me than you will ever know.
Yeah.
That got me thinking about this is more than just a villain who wants it because it's force sensitive, ambiguous. I'm going to take over the world and reinstate the empire. It made me think and hope that there's some personal dimension to this, that he needs maybe Baby Yoda's healing ability for a family member. Right. For himself, does he have some weird program of I can use its blood to power other troopers, any number of just sort of weird, crazy, a mad scientist culty thing, but personal. And this show has been so personal that it makes me think like this is going to matter to Moff Gideon on some deeper level.
I hope so, because he's got the cape to match his desires for power. That brings to a close the episode with, all right, I got to face it, the reveal that Quill we do believe dead. Look, anything's possible on TV, right? But doesn't look good. And Baby Yoda's on the ground, which caused a squeal of terror in my house when watching this. But Moff Gideon looks like he might have possession of Baby Yoda going into the final episode. So final moments here, Joseph, as we look to the final episode of season 1, big finale coming up. Any thoughts, wild predictions, where you want it to go?
Yeah, I would like for Mando to have a little bit of sort of emotional catharsis.
Yeah.
But because this episode's so hyped up, what is your deal with droids? And we've been seeing that is his, instigating trauma. I would love a kind of classic storytelling that maybe it's IG-11 coming back in to save the day and prove Quill, poor dead wise Quill, that he was right when he spoke.
Yeah. That
the imprint had changed on IG-11, and that that sort of emotional knowledge for the Mando of processing that helps him get to where he needs to be to defeat Moff Gideon. Yeah. And I would love to see an actual defeat of Moff Gideon.
Not carry on next year. Wrap it up here with him.
I love Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I want to feel like this season is complete, and I'm happy if it's them looking out at the horizon and where do Mando and friends and Baby Yoda go next. I'm happy if it's a cliffhanger, but I still, even if it's a cliffhanger, I still want some amount of this is where the Mando got to. This is what this chapter of this story, the volume, I guess, because these are all chapters. But some definitive and then look towards what's next. If that's a cliffhanger or just more adventures.
Could be. And this all could end with Fennec Shand returning with a bandage on, and Boba Fett, Jango Fett, either side, it could work out.
Cobb Vanth, all of them.
Cobb Vanth is there. Every bit of canon revealed in the final episode. No, it's been, this was, I really love the child. I no need to rank them, but mentally you start to do that. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Woo! We're live.
Can I offer you a libation to celebrate our shared camera angle?
I love the child. Episode 2 is my favorite episode so far because it just surprised me, moved me in a way. But this one's right there. This is kind of the promise of of the show before we saw it. The first 3 kind of take you down. Oh, they're going a different way with this. 4, 5, and 6 definitely more episodic. And now this, I'm like, we got a gang all together. We got some action. We got the Empire. We got a lot of things we were. I don't want to say promised by them, but sometimes you look at the marketing and you promise yourself.
Absolutely.
So it's great. So that is our look at The Mandalorian, Chapter 7, The Reckoning. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Reach out on Twitter. You can follow me at Napzok or go to Napzok.com for a lot of my crazy adventures. And Joseph, it's always great to have you here. We do a lot of work over on Force Center, but you got a lot of other things going on. Where can they follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for comedy albums, a comedy book, other podcasts, all that stuff.
All that stuff, indeed. So that is it. So for the last time, Quill, he has spoken. We'll see you next time because we have spoken as well. We'll see you, friends.